Welcome back to Tales from the Pit. I'm your host, Michael Swaim. This, of course, is the lither, sleeker, revamped version of Tales from the Pit, with shorter introductory sequences and longer conversations so that you can fall into an even deeper trough of despair. Today, we'll be talking with Small Beans staple Cristian Ramirez about his recent divorce, as well as my not-so-recent divorce. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Yeah, we're pretty out of sync, but that's fine. That's why we do it.
All right,
well, to you it sounds in sync. Yeah, I can hear the exact amount of lag we have, which is 2.5 seconds.
Oh, okay. Hopefully that gets better over the call.
No worries.
Or it stays the same, so it's easier to edit. I don't know.
Exactly. We've begun, by the way, because it's a perfect metaphor. I think it's ideal for our divorce episode that we're just out of sync, and as hard as we try, we're not quite on the same page, and there's just a lag and a disconnect. But so that people know what's going on, this is Tales from the Pit. I am your humble pitsman, Michael Swaim, and I'm really, really, really happy to have our guest today. This is Cristian Ramirez. Cristian, it's been way too long since you've been on Small Beans.
Yeah. I was kind of taking a break. Things were, as we're going to discuss, kind of crazy for me the last year. So, yeah.
Well, so as I like to put it, you were harvesting content this last year. And now it was all for this episode.
Yep, I'm ready to go.
Cristian does for you people. Yeah. Well, I'm just going to hit you with it, man. So tell us about that break. Where have you been? What was going on that absorbed so much of your attention? And what's the state of play right now?
All right. So, I will get to... This has been going on. Obviously, the issues that resulted in me and my now ex separating and filing for divorce. There have been problems that have been going on for a long time. Of course, we've also both had baggage from when we were kids that we brought with us into our relationship, because we started dating when I was 18, when we were both 18. So, and then we dated for a couple of years and got married when I was 21, she was 20. So we've been in a relationship for 15 years, pretty much. We've been going through therapy together for the last 2 years. So it was just kind of trying to figure things out. We had never found an effective and a therapist that actually worked well with us until this point. We've tried it before, and it just kind of, I guess it moved us into other issues, but it didn't actually, we weren't getting at the root issues of So
ooh, that's a really great point, because I have a stupid amount of therapy, which is a tremendous luxury that I am grateful for, but I think you bring up something so great, which is that it's just like finding a doctor or a mechanic.
Yeah.
You can find a therapist who's decent, but just moves you laterally. You just talk about issues.
Yep.
You can go week after week and just talk about stuff that's true and get insights about your brain and be like, that's interesting. Okay, I was really here to avert divorce, and we don't seem to be doing that, but we are finding out interesting things about my personality or whatever. And then and you can get straight up bad therapists, of course. So I'm going to assume this was couples therapy, or were you doing individual and couples, or what was the setup?
For the last couple of years, it has been individual and couples. We would both have a session, and then depending on kind of what came about in that session, we would either go one of us or come back as a couple. It just kind of, it was all just went with the flow of really what we were working out in that particular time.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, so I also was in couples therapy towards the end of my marriage, and then something I look back on with mixed feelings that I think is kind of weird is we continued to go to couples counseling after getting divorced. And and I'm wondering, are you doing that? Like, in the name of maintaining our relationship and being close and amicable, we continued going to therapy after divorce, even though my ex left me for another man who she immediately married. So it was like, in retrospect, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm wasting my time here. Like, I don't understand why I went to an additional 6 months of therapy just to be on good terms with this person. Now that because here's the premise, listener. I have a divorce that's about 8 years old. Christian has a fresh divorce. So I'm just saying, as the guy with the old divorce, I do sometimes now question, what was I trying to accomplish out of that? Not to say that, because everyone's situation is different. In my case, my ex, I've come to believe, as I do believe now, like, the dynamic was straight up abusive. So it was not necessarily good for us to be amicable. That wasn't even a goal that I needed to be working toward. But what was like, what? I want you to be in control of how much detail you choose to share.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, like, what are the issues? Where do things stand now? Are you guys shooting for that, hey, we'll still be friends? Or are you like, nah, we're gonna chill out and step out of each other's lives at this point? What's the strategy?
So all right, I'm gonna try to answer all of that in as best a way as I can.
Or some or none, you just take control and say whatever you want.
Yeah, man. No. I think it's good for everybody, for people to be able to hear other people's. Well, like the point of this podcast, they can relate.
That's the point.
They can relate to our trauma and stuff like that via our experiences. So we both carried a lot of stuff, like I said, from childhood into our relationship that we hadn't worked out. My father was neglectful, my birth father, and like we've discussed before, just the kind of stuff that went on with my parents. Her mother had abusive tendencies, and she was manipulative and like gaslighting and stuff like that to my ex. And so we both carried over some things from our personal traumas that like poisoned our relationship for a long time. We both loved each other a lot. Like that was never in doubt for me. That we actually legitimately felt love towards each other. And it's not even now. Like, even now we are both trying to handle everything in as loving and caring a way as we possibly can, because the last 2 years has been a lot of she and I working to kind of rebuild all the trust that we'd lost for each other. And it just turns out that there were scars for me that I couldn't move past. Like, there's like, as much as I forgave her and do wish the best for her, there were just some things that like block me from being able to love her in a way that is, I guess,
ultimately what you want to give and get out of a marriage.
Yeah, exactly. Like. Yes. Yeah. That.
How did that come to you suddenly? Was that like a big crystallizing moment? How? And now I'm asking for selfish reasons, because my current status is I'm in an 8-year relationship where the beginning was incredibly rocky, and we'll delve into this a little more, but I don't want to take the focus there just yet.
Sure.
But like, it's the same thing. It's baggage from the previous. So sorry to say this, but in my experience, your experience will be that in your next relationship, it will all get fucked up because of stuff you brought from this marriage
Sure.
that you didn't need to. Like now the challenge will be to not bring these dynamics, these coping skills, and this baggage, and put them on whoever comes next. Because my current girlfriend and I are in the process of figuring out, like, we did do that to each other.
Yeah.
Then we got over it. We're not doing it to each other anymore. But was it too traumatic for us to come back from?
Right.
I am still wary of you because in the beginning you acted like this. And I'm like, I know, but that was about my ex. That wasn't even about you. I'm sorry about that. We went through therapy. We figured it out. And it's like, I know, but you did it. And I look at you and I'm like, you did that thing. And I'll divulge juicy details, but just not yet.
Yeah.
So, so was that like, so I'm literally asking selfishly, like, did that come as actionable information in a huge crystallizing moment in therapy? Did you guys make that decision together? Was that a decision that solidified inside you and then you made it? You know, how'd that shake out?
Okay, so I will say that the most traumatic parts of our relationship for me happened in like 2012, 2013. And then I was going through a period where I was very emotionally shut down and just feeling very numb. Leading up to when we started therapy, that's when I was feeling my most like actually depressed. And like I couldn't figure out. And it was just a matter of like, okay, well, sitting down with myself and really like examining why am I feeling depressed? And then that's when we started going to therapy. We worked up to the point where I could say that I don't want to be married anymore. Like it was more than a year of just peeling back layers and like accepting the things that were underneath those layers and getting to the point where eventually she was able to tell me, I want you to be happy, and if this isn't part of it, as in our marriage, then I want you to feel like you're free to tell me that, and we can either work it out or we'll end things. And then so eventually, because it was a back and forth thing with therapy, a lot of times it would go over the things that had hurt me, the things that had hurt her, the roots of the reasons why each of us were hurting each other, and then we'd move on to something else. And it was that kind of a rhythm. And then so eventually it got to that point, and I'd had to sit with it for like a couple weeks and really just go through it, and eventually just tell her, yes, I want a divorce. I don't want to be together anymore. And that was hard because like that was around the time when quarantine started. And we were still together for like another month after quarantine had started. So that's kind of how it worked. Like it was just a process for me. It was not a single solidifying moment. It was, like I said, peeling back layers and layers and layers until I finally got to the point where I could say, yes, this is what I want. This is how I feel. This is the thing that I think is going to give me the ability to actually be happy at some point. So, yeah.
And was she in a position at that point to say, like, I'm not fully, or I was aware it was a possibility it would go that way, and I want you to be happy. So, like, or I guess what I'm getting at is in my divorce, the roles were reversed, and the big moment where the first person said, I want a divorce, it was her saying it to me. I did not see it coming, and I made it as difficult. Like I'm a very emotional person, and I like broke down sobbing. I remember saying, you're killing my children. And like, I did not make it easy. And what's crazy is within 72 hours, I was like, you're right. I'm also glad that I'm happy to be separating from you. But the moment was so fucking dramatic. It sounds like you had a bit of a better road with it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's accurate in a lot of ways, because like I said, we'd been spending the whole year prior working up to that and trying to be better versions of ourselves to each other. So in some ways it was...
Did it feel... Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but did it feel during that year that you were building towards divorce, or did it still feel like it could go either way and you were... You know what I mean? I want to get to the bottom of, was therapy helpful here? And did the couples counseling seem to have an agenda of keeping you together or breaking you up, or were you just in it?
I will say this for the therapist, she was just there to kind of help us resolve our issues. It wasn't with the goal of one thing or another. She never gave us that. She never put that idea into our heads that this is the goal. The goal is to work out your issues so that you can make whatever decisions you're going to make. She can't make that decision for us, kind of a thing. And for... working up to it, I kind of, for me, it was, I was trying to, because at the beginning of that year that we really started doing therapy, I told her that I was unhappy and that I didn't think I wanted to be together. And I couldn't promise her that it was going to change things, but I was willing to give as much effort and time into our relationship as I could. And so that's kind of what that whole year was about for me, was just, I've had this relationship with this person that I do love. I don't feel romantic love for her anymore. I don't, like, she knows I don't have that feeling for her anymore, but I'm willing to give it a try. I'm willing to see if these feelings can develop again, like see if there's something there for us. And then it was after that year, I felt certain enough that no, there isn't going to be that kind of reconciliation. There's like, this is it. And so, that's kind of how that process worked for me.
I do feel like that's interesting, because a lot of the couples counseling I've gone to seems to be the unspoken agenda is that they're trying to keep you together.
Yes.
So you might have lucked out in that regard, or it's nice, because it should just be, we're processing. We're just processing. We'll see what happens. But yeah, as I say, I think the challenge now will be because basically what happened with me and the person I'm currently with is they were already someone in my life who I liked a whole lot, so it was easy to develop feelings for them, and since they reciprocated, we got together really quickly, and literally like the fodder for the beginning of our relationship was the end of the last relationship, right? Like her comforting me and me explicating what type of guy I am based on how I navigated a messy divorce were some of the first things she became attracted to. Was like, oh, he handled himself with dignity in this situation, that's attractive, blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh, she helped me out when I was shattered, of course that's attractive. And now we have the exact relationship issues that you'd think we'd have. We're in couples therapy saying stuff, or me saying stuff like, she's just always trying to mother me and fix everything for me. And it's like, that's the template that was set by that's this relationship. So I'm wondering if you have enough distance yet to crystallize, or even care to discuss, which you're always welcome to say, nah, I don't really want to talk about it yet, or whatever. But what was that pattern with you guys? Do you have that clarity yet? Do you want, because you say it was basically came down to a crystallizing decision that the weight of the past, even in its resolution, is too much, and I need to sort of shake up the Etch-a-Sketch and start with a clean slate, because this is not, there's too much baggage essentially to work around. do you have clarity on what the nature of that baggage is and how likely you are to drag it into the next relationship? You're part of it?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of clarity on that. You, like, since the time that you've known me, you kind of can recognize my ability to compartmentalize and, like, yeah. And just kind of...
Me too, by the way.
Yeah.
People hate it.
Yeah.
Or like, you must share this experience where something really bad happens and you're like, oh my God, that's awful. Okay, I'm going to have a cheese sandwich, I think. And people are like, how can you be so heartless? And you're like,
right.
Well, that guy's in the hospital. There's nothing to be done about it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to save my emotion for when it resolves. Yeah.
Yeah. I very much kind of do the same thing. So we figured that out pretty early on into therapy, that there was a really bad mix of her having unresolved emotions and like her resolving things through emoting, and me kind of trying to resolve things through not emoting. And so we would just have the two extremes with each other, and it would only drive the other one to be more in that way. Like, she would have an emotional response to something that would upset her. I would immediately like get gun shy or like not want to interact with it. And then that would make her more upset because I wasn't being as caring as I could have been. And then that would make me more upset because then she's getting angry about something that doesn't involve me. And it would spiral like that. So that's a dynamic that we absolutely have addressed a lot of times.
So she's putting out bigger and bigger signals, which you are ignoring harder and harder.
Right. And yeah, and that's
a classic,
yeah.
My friend.
Yeah. And so and of course, like I said, that came from our parents. That came from my dad being neglectful and her mom being very demonstrative and big, and like her anger being a thing that was just around. And so that for us, that was the dynamic. And I think I feel confident now that I am much more balanced in being able to feel things. And like, because I will say that the last like month or so, the last few weeks of us being together when we were quarantined together and we couldn't do anything.
Oh my God. And that must have been rough.
Yeah. And I'd already said it. I'd said I want to divorce. And this is like, so we're just at the point where... I didn't
even realize quarantine divorce. Oh no.
So
the QD.
Yeah. We were stuck in a house together, and
yeah,
we had to, she had to, because a lot of...
Didn't any part of you think when you realized, oh, I do want a divorce, maybe I'll wait till we get vaccinated, then say I want a divorce? There was
like there was there for a second, and I was like,
okay,
I can't do that to either of us. I can't pretend for I don't know how long. It's
for logistical convenience. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of our process had involved her being more caring about how her reactions and her responses were affecting me, and me being more like open and honest and like telling her these are the things that are hurting me or upsetting me. And that last couple weeks, like, it forced both of us to like, okay, we have to coexist. We have to we can't like just kill each other. Like, we've got to do something. So I had to like dump out a lot of the just things that I was feeling, and she had to help me through it. Cause I will say this to as a positive and as to why I do still want to have a friendship and a relationship with her. She worked her ass off to address the issues, the things that were hurting me that she was doing. And that is something that I deeply respect. And it is, like I said, that's the reason I do want to still have a relationship with her. Like, I can't get to the point. I'm scarred in some ways too badly to redevelop any kind of romantic feelings. but I do respect and love her in a, like, we're bonded. Like, there's nothing that either of us can do about it. We were together for so long and we've been through so much together that we would have had to end on an extremely bad, like an extremely negative point for us to both go, no, we're just done. So I don't know. That's kind of, I guess that answers an earlier question too, of just how that all worked out. Yeah.
You also just made me realize something that I've never really thought about in this exact context, which is just that obviously there's so many jokes about turning into your parents, resisting your parents, like, and if you've been to therapy, if you delved into the basics of therapy, you know, a lot of it is about your family of origin, right? And like these coping mechanisms that you develop, and just the way that you normalize and how you view the universe is so established by the time you're, let's say, 18 years old, 19 years old, starting, you know, making this major choice to get married. I got married at 23, so I also get it.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, side note, would you recommend people get married young?
No.
Yeah, I think it's hardly ever a good decision. I don't think it was a good decision for me. So anyway, we'll throw that out as a recommendation. But yeah, you just made me realize it's not really a beef I have with my parents as much as my entire ancestral genetic line.
Yeah.
Because it's like what we're really battling is the type of person you are.
Yep.
Like that's what growing up is almost figuring out who you are, and then you can stop doing that shit.
Yep.
Because a lot of the stuff that you think is normal, or there's no other way to navigate because it's just the way the world is, that's just the way your world is.
Yep.
And the way the world is through the lens of your family and your formative experiences. But there's any number of ways to navigate.
Yep.
And yeah, that's just fascinating. Okay, so let's see. I want to take us off in a bit of a new direction. When do you think you will, or have you already gotten back out there? Like, how comfortable are you being single? Are you looking to recapture that immediate, like, if you could flip a switch and get into another committed long-term relationship that was going to be dense and complicated and richly rewarding and long, or are you going to date around, or are you not even thinking about that? You know what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's tough. I recognize the fact that there is a not insignificant part of me that wants someone to be here with me, because there are just so many things that I like doing as a boyfriend or husband or whatever. Like I enjoy so much, like cooking for someone or sitting down and talking about their day or like their favorite music and movies and stuff like that. I mean, like, there's a reason why I've done podcasts with you guys so much. I legitimately enjoy just talking to people and having that human connection. And so I recognize that is a thing that I want in my life, and that I have felt very lacking in my life recently. So there's a little bit of hesitance for me to actually starting a new relationship. Like I've gotten on dating apps and stuff like that and just kind of looked around, but there's nothing so far that has been like, yes, this is something I want, a relationship right now. Because like I said, that is a part of my compartmentalized brain, is the ability to recognize, oh, my feelings are doing this, and that could be dangerous for me right now. That could be something that is going to lead me.
But you're now, isn't there a way in which you feel like you've leveled up and you're playing New Game Plus, because you now actually, there is such a thing as therapy's like the gym, and if you've just put in a lot of work and you actually feel like you've made breakthroughs and you really are going to be able to not lay some of your formative baggage on the next person, I think it's exciting to like test yourself or to want to, there's an urge to want to find that person so you can not fuck it up.
I
be like, look, I'm gonna not fuck it up. Watch me, God.
No, I completely agree. Because there's that part of me too that's like, I'm
ready now.
I've done it. I've gone through there's the thought in my head of what was the point of sacrificing that relationship and all of that stuff, if not to have a completely new life, if not to have something new and great come from it. But yeah, it's just, I overthink things. I have a problem sitting here and going, is this really something that I want, or is it something that I just feel like is lacking in my life? Is there a difference between those two things? Is there a difference between being used to something and actually requiring something? Right, exactly. You could just be a monk sitting on a straw mat in a mud hut, and you could be contented. What is anything? Now we're really getting into it. Yeah. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff.
Should I do anything? Do I need to do anything?
Yeah.
Shouldn't I just go to therapy and pay my therapist? No.
But that's the kind of stuff that comes up when I'm processing this stuff. And yes, I do think eventually that I'll be able to get to the point where I want I really want a new relationship. I think because like I said, there are parts of me that really enjoy just the caring and the giving aspects of it and the receiving aspects of it. We all want to be loved, and I want to know about we all, but yeah, it's good. It feels good to be loved, and it's hard to sacrifice that. And I wouldn't know, but no, I'm just kidding.
It's, I also think it speaks to a misconception about divorce that I certainly had when I was younger, which is that, look, all marriages end. Yeah. Till death do us part. You will die pretty soon. It's not even that long life. So I would argue that a relationship, I guess I'm asking you, do you still consider the relationship fruitful, and are you glad you had it? You know what I mean? Yeah. I get so many people who are like, oh, you got divorced, therefore I bet you wish you could get that time back. And I'm like, no, the relationship was a success in that I learned about myself and I experienced love with this person in our own way for this amount of time. That's what it was, and now it's done. It's like a completed book or something. But how do you feel about all that? Yeah. Are you feeling like a failure? Or are you like, no, that was a relationship that ran its course and it was what it was?
Yeah, this is something that is definitely a cycle of things that when I was going through it, and in that couple weeks in between telling her and actually moving out, I told her, this isn't what I wanted either. I never went into this relationship wanting this. This to me, this is a failure right now. I was not able to do something. And I have grown to recognize that is just how I was feeling at the time. That's how I was conditioned to feel for most of my life. That if we don't stay together forever, and then it's a failure. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's so many people, especially in English-speaking Western culture, staying in horrible relationships because they think they're supposed to. And I hope some of them hear this, because you don't have to.
Mm-hmm. And if
it's not right.
Yeah, it felt like a failure, and I cried about that. I've had deep emotional sorrow about feeling like, what was I doing? What was the point of all of this? But I would not trade that relationship and that time for anything, because I feel like I am in a better place now. I'm not great yet. I'm not it still makes me sad, and it's still I'm still dealing with we got to do this paperwork and a judge has to sign this kind of stuff. I'm still dealing with that part of it. So it is still very fresh and still opens up the wound a little bit whenever I have to do one of those, the actual legal processes. But it is.
See, that's
I was just going to
really
say
interesting because. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the actual amount of growth and all the things that we did together are irreplaceable to me. Like, I wouldn't be who I am without the good, especially the good, but the bad stuff from that relationship too. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's in it. From I'm in a very particular position, but in my position, I am almost envious of your ability to be in that relationship with that. By which I mean, that's so it gets better and it doesn't get better.
Right.
Or there's something I definitely wanted to talk about this episode as the guy with a divorce in the rear view is more. Okay, for example. Yeah, so I guess my point is I'm still mixed up. I still don't know if I'm doing it right or what I should think and feel. But I wanted to talk about it and bring it into the light.
Yeah.
And we'll see if yourself or the listeners have anything to say about it. But basically, the situation I find myself in is like, dude, when I submitted my divorce paperwork, I submitted it like I went down to the courthouse with my new girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like she was already with me at that point and we went out on a date and celebrated. And if you follow me, it was more important to her than to me that was the narrative.
Sure.
Like in the beginning of because there was, I think, an aspect of, well, if we're going to be together, it's important to the shared narrative of this new relationship that old person was evil and abusive and you hate them and you'll never talk to them again. And so like my new girlfriend, who I'm still with, I mean, my girlfriend, you know her.
Yeah.
I'm just, people know her name even from listening to the network, but for some reason I'm protecting her anonymity right now. But we went through a period we now call the purge, and she now recognizes that it was wrong. Like she doesn't feel good about it, but a period where she basically required me to delete all my love poetry, block my ex on all communication, and like come to terms with, which was sometimes code for just admit and hold up the idea that she was abusive. It was bad. You're glad she's gone. You're never going to speak to her again. And it was like, a lot of it rang true because our relationship was very dark. But now I also am in a new reality where I wonder to this day if the narrative I believe in my head about my ex is more of a narrative that is there to suit the current relationship. Yeah. And it just trips me up because it's like, can you ever be in a relationship where you just are yourself and there's nothing attached to that? Baggage is the term. It's a good term we've arrived at as a culture because that's what it feels like stuff that's attached to you. Can you ever be like clean, right? Like pure? This is how you get roped into Scientology, by the way. Like, I want to be pure. How can I be psychologically pure?
Cleanse me, please.
But man, it's just so interesting to me that like my whole marriage, it also created the starting kernel DNA for like the current relationship, even though my current girlfriend would not like it to be phrased that way. It's like, well, it did though, because our relationship in some ways has been a reaction to that. And now we're at a place where, thanks to challenges, thanks to going to therapy to try to hold it together, we start to learn about ourselves. And now we know all this shit. Like she admits it, or, she's not into that. She goes, it was not fair of me to ask you to delete all that shit. I did it. That's why we call it the purge, right? She's like, it was bad. I did it because of my own fears and insecurities. I'm over it now. Can you forgive me? I say, yes, I forgive you. We kiss. The question is like, is that baggage really gone?
Right.
Like right now we're in the middle passage of our relationship where we're like, we want to get married and have kids. Are you ready to forget? about all of the times in the first 3 years where we were less than charitable to each other, or manipulated each other for our own needs to get the other person to fulfill a need we had, and like didn't care about, bending them to our will.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're not doing that anymore. But I remember when we were doing that stuff, and I don't know how it's going to land, man. But I do have to cling to the idea that every relationship within which you grow and learn has value, because otherwise, what am I doing?
No, I hear you completely. And we as people, and like this rings especially true, I think, to people like us that want to be storytellers, narrative is so important to us. Like, and that's feeling like there's a purpose and like there's a reason why all this stuff is happening, and needing, and just like the way we're conditioned, needing a villain, needing a good guy, needing all of these things to fit into a clean or neat narrative. And that's just like, I mean, you love Vonnegut and like things like FOMA, the things that we need to believe, regardless as to whether or not we're true. That's a very real thing to us. And
right. And like a FOMA for my current relationship is that my marriage was an abusive nightmare that I narrowly escaped from. And I do believe that is largely true, but I believe it's also been exaggerated for the sake of the narrative of the FOMA of our current relationship. And I don't know how much, and it haunts me.
Yeah.
Like how much, because the interesting thing about that is I feel like the present moment is in some ways true, right? Or like you perceive it. At least you can build falsity, you can be in delusion, but the present moment presents you with truth constantly, or at least reality. The only way we can access the past or the future is narrative. You cannot actually visit a memory. You can only tell yourself a little story in your head about what you're pretty sure happened that day.
And we all know
it might not be true. And we know through studies that it's usually fabricated to some degree.
We all have, the past is always seen through the lens of what we need it to be or what we want it to be. And that's something that is so hard to deal with when you're trying to figure out what is real right now. Like, what do I actually need? What are the things that I need to move forward? And
it's like, keep in mind the thoughts your brain is feeding you right now are subject to the baggage of your brain wanting to navigate the universe the way it always has, because it's lazy. So it's like you have to question your own thoughts that percolate to the surface of your own brain. You can't even trust. And like, that's why therapy, I think, is so valuable to anybody who is willing to do it or is able to do it, is because you get an outside perspective to say, well, why do you think that? And then you can delve into it deeper. And like, I think that's the thing that drew me to acting and performance, is the question of, okay, why is it that you feel that way? Why is it? Because it started off as, why is it that the character feels this way? And then it eventually graduates to, why is it that I feel this way? What are my concepts and perceptions about this thing that are coloring it? And what is it? Get down into the deepest part of me. Why do I think that is the emotional response I'm having? And it's impossible to divorce yourself from that, obviously. But it is very helpful to have other people there to bounce that off of and be like, hey, well, I know you. Is it maybe this? Is this the reason why you're having that response? And it's just... it's not always immediately concretely actionable, but sometimes it is. Like, I think a great example is you describing... I doubt that without therapy, you would have necessarily intuited all on your own, oh, I get shy and quiet, and she gets emotionally more and more, and these impact each other in the following dynamic that pushes them both to extremity. That's not necessarily something that's easy to just observe yourself when you're in it. And information like that ultimately led you to the decision that you want to move on from the relationship. So like, I think it's an interesting takeaway that therapy can seem very ephemeral, but it actually is. I always come back to comparing it to going to the gym. It's really concrete.
Yeah.
Like, you go to therapy, you do the work. If you do the work regularly, you will notice things that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. They will lead you to make decisions that are based on truth. But then I always question at the end of that chain, what's the point? But this is moving from divorce talk into philosophy talk. But I'm like, is that good? Is that the goal of life? To be to overcome everything that makes me unique and just be a blank slate who has no emotional baggage? Is that the goal? I don't know that it is. Werner Herzog, I think, always refreshes me because he has one of the more interesting. You so rarely hear a human being with this opinion, but Werner Herzog has a quote that's something like, "I hate therapy because what's the point of being born into a big, creepy, dark house if you're going to turn floodlights on and look in every corner and clear all the cobwebs out? The point of being born into this animal body of being a human is to not understand and to flail around in emotional confusion and darkness." And I'm like, that's actually interesting. So few people view that as a positive, that we're constantly beholden to our own imperfections. But Werner Herzog thinks that's cool, thinks that's neat. And I'm like, yeah, I can appreciate that appreciation.
Well, and my only not counter, but my only question to that would be like, don't you want to see the parts of the house that are strong or good or like that are worth like expanding upon, that are the things that are worth keeping and cherishing? And therapy also helps you do that. It helps you realize, hey, these are my strengths. These are the things that I want to improve in my life. These are the things that I don't want to diminish. I don't think I agree in so much as I don't think anybody should be like a completely blank slate. I know, like, if you're a Buddhist or whatever, maybe you want to disagree with that, but I
don't think everyone should always revert to perfect average moderation. Like,
right.
Oh, I compartmentalize a bit. I need to strip that away so that I'm average.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a little emotional. I need to average that out. I don't necessarily think that's the goal.
Yeah. No, but we're all part of different pieces of an organism. We all are good at certain things and bad at certain things. And I think the beauty of life is finding the parts that are complementary and kind of working with other people to make something beautiful out of that. Like, I guess that's the artist part of me that wants to believe that. But it's, well, what if my strengths fit in a good complementary way with yours, then I want to make something even better together. Like, and I think that's good with relationships
and
too.
You can't know that without the blueprint to the house. Yeah.
Yes.
Or
exactly.
it makes it more of a shot in the dark, definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
And if history is any indication, the other bitch is that, like, hopefully this is helping someone out there who's listening.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? I went other wiser, older people told me what it would be like, and then I had to go through it myself to learn these things.
Yep.
Like, I want to go to every 8-year-old and shake them by the shoulders and be like, pay attention to how you're developing the way by which you navigate the universe, and question it, because it is not the only way by which to navigate. And then their parents are like, get this man the fuck away from my kid. But don't you wish you could advance, or I don't know, shortcut all this shit? I guess not, though. What would life be if you didn't experience some experiences?
Right. But when you're in the middle of it, you don't want that. You just want relief. You want things to get better when things are hard. And it sucks that you have to go through all the terrible stuff. Like,
dude, like, my latest is, because I have periods of extreme depression, and when I have periods of extreme depression, my current partner questions whether she can handle it, because it's really extreme. I'm not gonna I flip out. I don't, it's never directed at anyone but myself, but it's disturbing to witness or be around.
Yeah.
So, like, I get if anyone ever broke up with me because they're like, your depression is too scary to be around. I'm like, fair enough. That's a fair reason to break up with me. But the weird thing is when I'm doing really well, and lately I have been, when I feel like myself and I'm doing great, she reverts to talking about marriage and kids soon. And I'm like, but there's always going to come a day where I get depressed again. And I need to have confidence that you know that and accept that and can handle that.
Yeah.
And I question whether you can handle that because everything goes well when everything's going well.
Yeah.
If you follow me.
Yes. I completely follow you. Yeah.
And yet at the same time, we could just continue waffling for the rest of our lives until it becomes biologically too late to have children. So it's like, what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's very much, it's such an individual decision and choice that people have to make because things like kids are important to some people. And I think a lot of people, most people, kids are important. So, and it's just, that is something that we can't.
They're either important in one way or the other. Yeah. Like you either definitely want them or definitely don't want them. I don't know a lot of people who are like, I have no opinion on kids in my life.
Yeah. No.
That would be interesting. Someone who's like, if I get pregnant, I get pregnant. If I don't, who cares? I never think about it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of how I feel right now, is that kids are not something, I mean, I guess it's just a lack of a priority to me at this point.
Well,
because
coming off a divorce, you're not thinking about kids. Come on.
Right.
That's just not the time to be thinking about that.
That's true. But I'm also like, I'm going to be 35 this year. There's going to be, and like, there's going to be a time when I like have to start thinking about that if it is something that I want. But I guess it's not really either. I think because I could adopt. Like that's something that
I don't want to have it decided for me just because I waited so long.
Yes.
I don't want to not have kids just because I didn't get to it.
Yeah, that's taking away your agency.
Hey, yeah, listeners, write in. Should we have kids? We'll do whatever the majority people say.
Yeah, put up a poll with when this comes out. Should Michael and Christian have kids? It's just interesting
because I've always grown up thinking I wanted kids, definitely. As the future of the world has seemed bleaker and bleaker, it's made me question whether it's the right time to have kids. But also, unless you have the thing where you get your partner pregnant randomly, which I haven't had happen yet, I'm more of in a situation of like, it's within my control to decide when and whether. What a crazy button to decide to press. When should I press it? Today? Tomorrow? When? How do you know when? I want to ask Soren and like, I don't know. Soren doesn't, because Soren's life is so different than mine that it's not, it doesn't help to compare notes because it's like, well, he's like, well, the Hallmark card that was sent with me as a child said, at this age, you will meet your true love. At this age, you will sire an heir. And everything's just going according to plan for that dude. But I don't know how normal people decide when it's time to have kids.
Yeah.
And then all my other friends who have kids, they're like, I didn't decide, buddy. She got pregnant. You know what I mean? So it's like, I wonder who out there is calmly, collectedly being like, now is the time for children.
Yeah.
They will be well supported and cared for. Because with my current partner, she's like, I don't know, makes me nervous to have kids when you have wild mood swings. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm probably always going to have wild mood swings.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
My parents had wild mood swings. Spoiler alert. That's why I have wild mood swings. And I'm still glad to be alive. Or like, and I love my parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, it's okay if I fuck them up a little bit. I don't want to be 50 and have kids. I'd rather have them now and fuck them up a little bit. They'll have their own fucked up lives and, you know, whatever. But she's more of the attitude of like, no, let's make sure everything's very perfect before we bring kids into this. And I'm like, I don't know when that will be, if ever.
No, and I completely understand that because my parents got divorced, and that has always colored my view of wanting to have kids, because I feel very much the same way as she does, that it's just, you know, I want things to be perfect. But I
Don't want to fuck
understand,
them up.
right?
Don't want to fuck them up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I understand your point of view, and I think it's kind of realistic to go, we're going to fuck them up. We just need to try our best to make sure that they know that they're loved and that they can like blossom and become their own person, even through them being fucked up. Like, because no matter what, something's going to happen. Nobody's life is like Soren's. We all have, we're all going to go through something that hurts us or like that is going to be traumatic for us. And there's resilience that we have to have and that was built into us that we can still have a really good life. Because like I had a lot of trauma when I was a kid, and but it's fine. Like I'm okay now. It hurt my relationships when it did, but I am so happy that I am here. I would not have wanted my parents to not have me.
I would not press a button that would have me unwritten from existence. Therefore, I'm allowed to fuck my kids up. They'll be fine.
And I think they will. It's just that is the kind of thing that you just provide a loving and like a caring environment and they will be okay. You can recover when you have like as people, we are so resilient. We are so able to recover from almost anything that as long as we have the support that we need, we're going to be okay. And I truly believe that.
And as long as you are connected and in collaboration and sharing with people,
yes.
I think, because that's a big point of this podcast is I hope hearing this provides a model for people who might not like, man, it's infinitely worse. If your depression, or let's say in my case, it was alcoholism, anything that's your thing, if you keep it secret inside yourself, it seems 1,000 times bigger than it actually is. If you compare it with other people, you realize, oh, it is really fucked up and dark, but everyone's really fucked up and dark. It's not even that big of a deal that your life is irrevocably shattered. It's not that everyone's life is like that. And that sounds depressing, but it's not. It's like,
it's not.
We're all fucked up. Let's get to the next day together. Look at that tree. It's nice. Let's have fun playing a video game or whatever. This will make sense to you someday if it doesn't now, listener. But like, the thing that I know I'm right about, and I know Christian will back me up on, is share.
Yes, absolutely. Because I went through a period for most of the 2012 to 2000, I guess that was 19, that I didn't share. That's what led me to depression. That's the thing that triggered it for me. And like the seed was always there because I had a neglectful parent when I was a kid. So the seed of depression was always there. When I actually started like acutely feeling it and like really getting into a depressive spell was me holding on to that stuff and trying to keep up the image of having an ideal life, having this relationship that to the outside other people would see as being perfect, and even keeping
that's what I tried to do in my first marriage, my marriage. That's so interesting. That was like both of us. I don't mean to say when I say it was abusive, I mean a two-way street. Like both of us were in a very dark place for the last like 4 years and kept it going. Both of us said to each other, explicitly in therapy, like, yes, I only stayed with you like the last 4 years was out of keeping up appearances. What a waste of fucking time. Everyone's time. What a terrible thing to do. If you're listening to this and you're doing that, stop. You don't stay in a horrible relationship just because you don't want to have failed at a relationship. That's so dumb.
No, go get help. Go talk to somebody. No matter who it is. If it's a therapist, even better. But if it's a trusted friend, they can even help you. Like just getting it out.
Absolutely.
Getting it out is so helpful. And like that's something that I told you after I had already like filed and made the decision to get divorced. I had been in like, you guys haven't known me at a time where I wasn't like holding on to something big and dark, and I'm so excited to share with you and Abe and like everybody, Tom and Dave and all of us, the time in my life where I'm not holding on to that shit anymore. Like, it's legitimately exciting to me, because the friends that I've developed over the last like 5 years have never gotten to experience that with me yet. And that's just...
We've missed you, man.
Yeah.
You've been absent the last year, I would say.
Yeah.
You have been sort of compartmentalized.
Exactly.
Dealing with your shit.
And that's like, it's just so... that is something that is legitimately exciting to me. And it's like, oh no, this is worth it. This is definitely worth the work of actually talking to somebody and getting it out there and like dealing with it, because now I get to have this new part of my life where that's not weighing me down constantly. And that's legitimately exciting to me. And I think it would be for lots of people.
And it's like you were saying, in this self-discovery process, naturally, you don't just discover horrible shit about yourself, although that is a lot of it. You, through doing that, discover, frankly, I'm doing great right now, which I'm going to pause and be grateful for, because it's not always the case. But like, you get really in touch with what feels like your true self, which is your best self. And if you need to hear that out there, hear me now. Like, your best self is your true self. And when you find the baggage, you also find like, oh, that baggage of shutting down, like, let's say in Christian's case, the reason you might shut down and compartmentalize, beneath that, why do you do that? Well, because you're a fountain of love for your fellow human beings, and it hurts you to be in engagement with them when they're... Okay, so what did you really discover about yourself? That you're human, that you love other humans. Like, it's good. It's all good. It just leads you to also realize the dumb ass shit that you do over and over and over that sabotages your life.
Yeah. And that stuff is worth getting rid of. It is, like you said... Self-discovery is discovering all parts, the good and the bad. And then once you know that they're there, you can make the decisions which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to let go of.
And it doesn't happen quickly. Like, just being aware, like, oh, I manipulate people in the following way instinctively. You will still have a period where you do it and catch yourself doing it before you stop doing it. So stick with it. Yeah. Share, be open. If you can afford therapy, find a good therapist. Don't settle for a bad therapist. Yes. And we'll all just keep navigating this shit together. If you have any insights into divorce specifically, though, especially if anyone knows how to not drag your baggage from the previous relationship into the next relationship, write in.
Yes.
Give me that pill. Yeah, whatever that pill is.
Be excited to hear it.
Yeah. But man, so happy to have you back on the network. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I bet it meant a lot to a lot of the listeners out there. It's really cool.
I hope so. I'm always happy to be talking to you on mic, off mic, however we can do it. So it's been a joy to do this episode of Tales.
Absolutely. It has for me.
Yeah.
It usually is, which is weird for considering the subject matter.
Yeah.
But when people... where is the word I'm thinking of? Where can people follow you? Because I have a feeling you'll probably be a bit more active in the coming year than you were in the past year.
Right now, the best place to follow me is on Twitter, and my handle's @fanboychristian. That's Christian with no H. That's the easiest way to see the stuff that I'm doing. But I am definitely planning on doing much more stuff with Small Beans in the near future.
Small Beans, baby.
So, and that's where the bulk of my work at this point is. So,
also, are you in super good shape now? Because after my divorce, looking ahead to the rest of my life, it definitely encouraged me to be like single Mike.
Yeah.
Like in good shape Mike.
Yeah, over the last 2020 from beginning to end, I lost 40 pounds. So
I knew it.
And I've just gotten back to my pre-holiday weight, so I'm still
2021
working on it.
is going to be the year of Small Beans featuring smoking hot single Christian.
I hope.
Lap it up, ladies. Yeah. This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you!